It was the first time on the African continent we had an election based on the universal adult suffrage.
Meaning that everybody who is of age could vote?
Could vote. At that time it was 21 years.
Okay.
So everybody who of age could vote. And secondly, before then, you could vote only when you were either a royal, that is, you were a chief with people under you, because that was the essence of the bond of 1844. And later on, the intelligentsia, businessmen and lawyers would come in for them to be regarded. And, and also, you should be living in the urban area, having registered a property as your own.
So this cut out our brothers and sisters in the rural areas.
And those living in town, if you are living in Accra
and you didn't have property
and you are
renting,
pusher, no, you will not be allowed to go. But the 1951 election will be very significant based on party politics, universal adult suffrage, and it meant everybody in the country having an opportunity to vote. And also, before then, there were no constituencies. Rather, there were chiefdoms. So if you were in the Nzema area called Apollonia, then you voted because you were an Nzema. And the 1951 election, there were clearly cut constituencies. And it became the first of its kind in Africa.
Because at that time, virtually the entire continent was still under colonial rule,
yes,
with the exception of Ethiopia.
Yes.
Yes, and Liberia. So, but let's take it back, because there must have been some calls for self-governance even before 1951.
Yes.
I think off the top of my head, the 1948 Accra riots, that galvanized the people. Just give us a quick summary of exactly what happened in the 48 riots and why there should be a straight line between the 48 riots and the 1951 election.
Okay, I would say that we had the first political party in Ghana in 1947, which was founded by an eminent businessman, Gold Coast timber merchant, called George Alfred Grant, otherwise known as Pa Grant. And we should add that he attended Wesleyan School in Cape Coast, now Mfantsipim School. He was from Axim. Now, this man had his able assistant, first deputy chairman, being R.S. Blay from the Nzema area. Then second deputy chairman, Dr. J.B. Dankwa from Akwapim. In fact, the first deputy chairman represented the western province of the Gold Coast, now Western and Central regions. Then the deputy Eastern province, that is Greater Accra and Eastern region. So those who make a mistake thinking that J.B. Dankwa was the leader or founder of the UGCC, please change it completely. It's a mistake. Now, with the formation of the UGCC, the whole idea, if we should explore, was that the British had signed the bond of 1844 with the chiefs. So, and then you also know that the implementation of the indirect rule was just a rule of the people through their chiefs. So as the chiefs collected poll tax, lampoll, and implemented ideas disseminated from the Europeans or the British, the local people or the indigenous did not feel it because they felt everything was coming from their own chiefs. That was the indirect rule system. And it saved them a lot of administrative expenses.
Yes.
They paid the chiefs somehow for the middleman role.
Exactly.
So the chiefs, as very soon Guggisberg would put it, were the natural leaders of the people.
Guggisberg was a governor of the Gold Coast back in the 20s.
Yes, he referred to the chiefs as the natural leaders of the people. And indeed so. Because when, for example, Azambuja came to Ghana 500-600 years earlier.
Portuguese chap.
Yes, it was the chiefs he met. He met Nana Kwame Ansah. And being Nana means he was a chief. He didn't meet scholars here.
No.
And all the fights with the Ashantis. It was fight between the British and the Ashanti chiefs Ashantis left by their chiefs. It was not Ashanti lawyers or Ashanti graduates or Ashanti doctors, So later on, when through missionary activities, the country began producing scholars, notably the lawyers, who would always represent the chiefs in the courtroom, write their letters for them, were their mouthpiece all the time. And then would emerge, notable people like Grant, who had a lot of money, with even chiefs serving them, would begin to think, why should the chiefs be the agents of colonial administration, when in fact we have the money to make things change or happen.
Funding them.
We create jobs, and the chiefs don't create anything. And then the lawyers will say, even the chiefs are illiterate. We represent them, we write letters for them, we read the letters written by the white man for them to understand.
So was capitalism on the part of the merchants and elitism on the part of the lawyers creeping in?
That was what was happening. So there was a fight, a straight fight between the two for recognition by the colonial master. Until the 1925 Guggisberg Constitution, that gave a little space to the so-called intelligentsia, businessmen and the educated, especially the lawyers. And then they went to Parliament. The colonial parliament was the legislative council, and in those days it was not on partisan basis, but at least now they had been recognized. Then would come the 1946 Barnes Constitution, which would also give them even an enhanced position. So as we tread on, don't forget, and indeed let us begin to remember that people like Dr. J.B. Dankwa, Nanka Bruce, Awuno Williams, Obechebi Lamte, Pa Grant himself were people who had, at one point in time or the other, served as members of the Legislative Council. So they were always hand in hand with the British until after the Second World War, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was signed by all the countries who were signatories to the UN Charter, to the effect that no nation on earth should rule or colonize another nation. And immediately, countries such as India, Australia, Canada, and others would begin to have their independence.
Indeed, India had their independence 10 years before Ghana, in 1947.
Yes.
Yes.
So the wind will blow here, and always it will be the intelligentsia who will know this, and not the chiefs.
They could read the news.
Very good. So they formed the first political party, United Gold Coast Convention.
UGCC.
Yes.
49.
In 1947.
47, I beg your pardon. 47.
Yeah, and the aim was that since the UN wanted all countries to be freed, once we are already ruling, administering the country through the Legislative Council, and even the chiefs too participating, we have to continue with the British until such time that we have been given full independence. So at that time, the slogan of the intelligentsia was this: men of property and standing. And that was why the famous man, Dr. J.B. Dankwa, was always championing what he termed property-owning democracy. Property-owning democracy as against democracy based on the natural leaders of the people, the chiefs.
So the property-owning democracy we hear now has roots coming from all the way back there.
We are now being championed by the NPP, because it was in the NPP in the constitution. Yes, that's it.
So it draws its line from 1940s.
Yes, those who did not understand in the 40s that when you have property, referring to the businessmen and men of standing, those who are well educated,
have your own house.
Have your own house, be well educated, then democracy should center around you as against the illiterate chiefs.
Yeah.
So before the coming in of the man Kwame Nkrumah, politics was a matter between the chiefs on one hand, who were directly recognized and respected by the British because of the bond of 1844, And for that matter, the Sagrenti War, because Ashanti wouldn't have become part of it until the fact that their chiefs were crushed. So always the British focused on the chiefs.
Because the chiefs will also help them to administer the colony.
And easily.
Indirect rule.
Yeah, indirect rule.
Okay.
And then the intelligentsia, who would be described as self-appointed leaders of the people, would push their way in it. And so successfully, they succeeded. Because both the 1925 Constitution and 1946 Banks Constitution gave recognition to them. And based on that, they formed a political party so that eventually they would take over from the British, they being wealthy and they being well educated, so that the chiefs would be sidelined.
So